time. I'm Natasha Hemara, currently principal in Hamilton at Rototuna Senior High School. But more importantly, today with me, I've got two fantastic leaders in the Waikato. They've been down here for a number of years, and I'll let them introduce themselves to you. I've got Virginia Crawford and Richard Crawford with me.
Kia ora, kia ora.
Kia ora tātou. So I'm Virginia, and I'm the principal of Fraser High School in Hamilton.
Kia ora, my name is Richard Crawford, and I am the principal of Fairfield College. Nice to be here.
Great.
Thank you, Natasha.
Thank you for such good friends. Now, I just want you to just share a little bit about the types of schools that Fraser and Fairfield are, so that people get a perspective of size, demographic, numbers, etc.
Okay, so Fairfield College has got about 700 students. It's, if you want to, it's probably 60% Māori now. 60% Māori students at Fairfield College, 5% Pacifica, 5% others, and then 30% European. So it's been a major shift over the last decade, but that's where we are. We're, if you want to use decile terms, we're decile 3, and it's just we're in a great spot in Hamilton, and we've got really special people, great students, and so it's excited to be there at Fairfield College.
Okay, so Fraser High School Taniwharau is, we've got 1475 students, and if you're going to use decile, then we're a decile 4 school, co-ed school. We've got, I think, about a 60-40 ratio of Pākehā European and Māori, and then we've got a growing population of Pacifica, and we also have about maybe 2 or 3% refugee, migrant, international exchange students. So we have families actually who are from the poverty line, and families who live on lifestyle blocks. So we've got a whole range of families.
Yeah. So thank you very much for sharing that. Now, I suppose what we're trying to do here is gather some learnings about how different people, different leadership have approached our current situation of change. So, all of a sudden, within a couple of days, we were asked to be prepared online. And I want to just hear from your perspectives what that meant for you in your schools, what that means for your students and for your teachers, and what are the next steps that need to happen for you for this to be really successful for our learners?
Okay, well, it was for us at Fairfield College. It was, we all knew that something was going to happen. So it was sort of, we had to get ourselves ready. We just didn't know when the lockdown was going to take place, or even if the lockdown was going to take place. But we were fortunate in that we decided to call what did we call it, a technology or something, a teachers only day or staff training day to be ready to, because the reality is this, that a lot of our staff weren't, like the distance learning and Google Classrooms, we all sort of knew about it, but we didn't really give it a lot of attention.
Yeah.
We just didn't, not as a school. Just like all schools, we would have had a couple of people who were right into it, and who were sort of accelerated beyond everybody else. But most of us, we didn't do it, including myself. I sort of knew about it, did a couple of things on it. But thank goodness we did call this day. So we got locked down. Well, Prime Minister came in on Monday, and she basically told us at about 1:30 in the afternoon that what was happening. But prior to that, on the Friday, we actually had a day where we had a big focus on Google Classrooms. And so let's put ourselves, I'll tell you one thing, Natasha, if it wasn't for that, I'm a bit worried. It's really exciting to see some of our teachers who if we didn't do that, they're just really into it, and they're providing some really excellent activities. And I'm sort of connected with a couple of classes, and so it's neat to see them posting work out and students coming back to them. And so that's really going well. Interesting enough, on that Wednesday, we're actually going to have a distance learning trial day. Of course, we've been locked down by then, So yeah, for us, it's. I mean, there are still some challenges in terms of some teachers. I'm just, I can't say hand on heart that everybody is sort of enthusiastically doing it, but those I knew beforehand who wouldn't have been doing it. It's exciting to see them engaging in that kind of platform. So our platforms, we've been quite simple. We said, okay, Google Classrooms, which that's what we're doing, and Google Meets. That's basically the two things we're using. The challenges that we're working with, we call it the sales tool with the Ministry of Education, trying to get that hard copies out for students who don't have devices. So that's a challenge in itself, but we're still keeping connected as a staff as best as we can. We have our staff briefings only once a week, so we come together this morning. But other than that, I've talked long enough. So what do you think, Mrs. Crawford? Tell us a little bit about Fraser.
So very much the same process that we followed as to Richard's school. So before the Prime Minister's announcement from Alert Level 3 to lockdown, we had a teacher-only day to prepare learning packages for our kids, whether they were online learning packages or hard copy. Then the Prime Minister made her announcement. Now, that afternoon, I called a staff meeting, and I actually told staff that they could go home and look after their families. So right from that point, we operated with a wellbeing lens. And so everything that we have done since then has been framed with wellbeing in mind. And I knew that most of our staff hadn't completed the learning packages, but I also knew too that they wouldn't be able to do that properly anyway if they didn't go home and look after themselves and their families in the first place. So that's what we focused on. And after that, it was really cool because teachers were given that permission and time and space to look after themselves and to look after their families first, and they were more willing to come in to complete the learning packages and to stay and volunteer to distribute those learning packages to students and their families. And we had a system set up so that teachers, if they chose to, could stay home, look after themselves, their families, or if they had time to come in and distribute the learning packages right up until the evening of lockdown, when everyone had to stay at home. And then from there, my executive team, or myself and the DPs, we then met actually throughout the entire break. It hasn't been a break, and I bet that's the same for every single school. We did not have a break at all. No one emotionally, mentally went on holiday. We met nearly every single day. We gave ourselves permission last Saturday not to meet. And when I say every single day, we met Saturdays and Sundays, which was really bad considering well-being. But when you got your team saying, no, we need to meet, we need to talk about this and this and this. And on the one hand, that's really cool because of their commitment and their passion to do right and to look after our kids and our teachers and our families. But on the other hand, we weren't walking the talk as far as our own well-being. Sure. And under putting the pressure upon ourselves. So no one is telling us that we have to do these things. It's just as professionals and that ethical and moral purpose to do this for our kids and our families. That's what drove us. So we, during that so-called break, not only my exec team, but also other leaders in the school were meeting. And I know that teachers were getting together on their own accord to do stuff. And that's what really blew me away, is the commitment that teachers had. And no one knew about it. They would just do it, form their own Google meetings and just keep planning and preparing for when we were supposed to return to school through distance learning. And also our students kept in contact with teachers. So even though our students knew it was the holiday, their constant contact with teachers meant that by the time we got to the actual formal start of term 2, I think everyone was really tired because they put in so much preparation leading up to it. We had a teacher-only day, and our mantra, I guess, was slow down and reduce, because just like Richard, we had staff that were not confident at all using their digital devices, let alone creating Google Classrooms and online resources and lessons. So we slowed everything down, and we told our staff, that's okay. You don't need to be brilliant at it. And if you haven't got your classes already up and running, we'll take the time right now. So we took it really slowly, taking the time to walk teachers through what they needed so that they could work online. And we told them that support would always be there. We likened it to free falling. So you jump out of a plane and you're in this space and you're not prepared and you don't know where you're going or what's happening. And we told them that you can free fall, it's okay, because we're the parachute. So we had all these leadership teams there to help them to walk through as fast or as slow as they wanted through online learning. So there are lots of leadership leader teams, teacher leader teams, and I feel really privileged to be working with the staff that I have, and I know that heaps of other principals will be feeling and thinking the same thing about their staff, just how neat they are, how committed they are, passionate they are, and even though they're fearful and afraid in this space, they're giving it a go, and I think that's totally amazing.
Cool, thank you. And I suppose I want to capture on a couple of things there. Agreed, we've all been working really hard. It was the first ever so-called holidays I had, and I think that most teachers are going to have been in that space. But I think I want to capture something that both of you have covered, and that's about sometimes we are quite tough on ourselves and what we are wanting in that space. When you said slow down and reduce, Virginia, I think we need to capture that. And Richard, you've talked about those teachers that you thought, might not have been really into this, but they're really learning and they're really growing and striving in this space. So I suppose when we think about this, because this is something I've been thinking a lot about lately, what if we can take some things from this space to help us move forward? Because there are sometimes those things that hold us back. I have just observed my staff, who I already felt had let go on a lot of things anyway in the way we do things, but really let go. What I'm hearing from you is the same sort of sense of, actually, could things be done differently or approached differently for the benefit of our learners? And does a school system have to look the same for everyone? So I know that this is going on in my head at the moment around, what if school could continue like this? Because I know right now I don't meet the needs of every kid in my school. I want to, but we're not flexible enough as an environment to do that. Does creating systems like this as an add-on to school allow us to start looking truly towards meeting those needs of all students? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it was quite interesting, because some of the comments that I've been getting from some of my teachers is that kids are doing more work now online than they actually were in class. And one of the things they said is it because they're not distracted? Is it because, they can work in their own time? So they don't have to sort of, okay, here's the lesson, you be there physically. And so that's some of the interesting impressions or reflections that some of the principals, some of the people are saying, this person, man, what do they do? They don't usually even come to school. So yes, so it's a way that, because our current system is set up quite stringently. It hasn't got a lot of flexibility. You've just got to be there, and whereas it's just a really interesting learning experience for us all, in terms of, for example, sometimes students, for whatever reason, they may miss 1 or 2 weeks of school. And, is it going to come to a point with us as teachers? And it's sort of also this whole thing about workload, and it's a hard thing to sort of work through for our teachers. But, is there a way, that you're physically doing your lessons? And I know some schools do this anyway, but for our school, and I'd say for most traditional secondary schools in New Zealand, it's probably not, there's not sort of, okay, I'm teaching a lesson today and I might as well put it on Google Classrooms also. So just in case for people who can't access it, they can actually see what's happening. So, there is some interesting opportunities for us to look at in terms of the structures that we have at school, about online learning and about capacity. What's the time now? At 3 p.m. today, we've got a whole lot of teachers going online because, like I said, we've got a person who was always doing, and this whole opportunity it's provided an opportunity for some real leaders to emerge in our school that prior to that, they were leaders. They've always been leaders, and they've always been but now they're sort of really, and it's okay with me. I'm stepping out of their way and letting them go ahead and do it because they've got some knowledge and they've got some skills that I'm never going to possess. And so what I'm saying at 3 o'clock, and I'm talking to these teachers, who are talking about this, oh no, we've got to go 3 o'clock, we've got to go online because Lisa's going to be teaching us how to take Google Forms and put it in Google Classrooms and make quizzes and make all, so to see that kind of thing happening is really exciting. But to me, that was quite interesting. Like if I go back to that first comment I said, Natasha, where some students seem to be actually engaging more in a digital environment than they were in a physical environment. And I'm just sort of got to unpack to see, why that is. I'm not sure. I'm just guesses.
I look at that, Richard, and I think about a culturally responsive lens where we need to know and understand our learners, and we need to be responsive to them in our school environments. And the way in which we teach, it's often a teacher-centered approach to doing things. Has this model truly provided us with an opportunity to see when the student can take control of that learning? What does it actually look like? Because I tell you what, we gave out a pretty rough schedule for our students to follow. There were some clashes in there, and it means that they have to be on top of things. It means they have to manage. It means they have to have a voice. And we are seeing some excellent self-management skills coming up for our students that we always wanted them to have, but we get that right. As a new learner, at this point, you learn it at this point, but why can't we learn to let it go?
Yeah, so it's interesting that you mentioned the self-management for learners, because that's what our teachers are finding too. So when they have synchronous sessions with their classes, kids are saying, oh, I have to go now because I've got to meet Mr. So-and-so or Miss So-and-so for my next session. And so they have organised their own timetable. And what we did, also with the wellbeing lens, is because we didn't know everyone's context in their home, working in their home, we gave them a general outline or framework of what they could be doing, and that's for students and for staff. So at this time in the morning, we know that you'll be getting your family ready and all sorts of things will be happening. And if you've got children, you'll be getting them ready for their online learning. So we call that session their asynchronous time. And then we know that from 11:20 through to 3 o'clock, that's when our kids will probably most likely be ready for synchronous learning. So we told teachers, just let them know when you're available and they can get on if they're available too. And we're finding that that's working out really well, because when kids have been notified that their teachers will be available at these times throughout the week, they have to then construct their own timetable for the week when they're free. So contextually for the student and for the teacher, it's working out really well, the flexibility that they've got. And like you said, to self-manage their own time, and for teachers to relieve that stress so they don't have a period 1, period 2, period 3, which doesn't fit in with their family or other responsibilities that they've got. So we're finding that really good, and the feedback that we've got from students and staff very positive. The thing for us right at the start was we asked teachers, before you even tackle anything to do with learning, formal learning, is spend the week, that first week, connecting with your kids, finding out what's happened to them during lockdown, and not interrogating them, but just listening to their stories and giving them an opportunity to talk to someone different outside of their bubble. And we've received really positive feedback from teachers saying that that's been invaluable, because gauging where their students mentally and emotionally are at, they can now plan work for them in response, or being responsive to that student's context and their individual being. So it's ironically, for most of our staff, realising that in order for them to work effectively and successfully online with their students, they have to connect relationship wise first before they can do anything else. And the reduction, giving permission to staff, saying reduce assessments, slow down, just focus on relationships and then learning. That's been hugely helpful to staff, and making them feel more confident that they don't have to rush around like mad, like pre-lockdown, because of NCEA. So that has relieved a lot of stress on students as well as staff.
Cool. So I think if we there's been a lot of things in there that I think people will take on board and I suppose be influenced by influence their practices moving forward. But if I was to say to you both, what are 2 of the biggest learnings that you have taken on board over this time? What are they? And if you can share those with us. And what one thing do you think you are going to take forward and challenge within your leadership?
Geez, those are hard questions.
I'm never going to give you an answer.
You should have given me a heads up. so go Virginia.
I don't know, that is so hard, because today I created my first Google meeting. Usually I've just relied on the DPs or whoever I'm meeting with, and I just tell them, oh, can you send me the link, please? Because I can't be bothered. And so for me, that would be my one. No, it isn't. Mine is the flexibility that online learning has given us. Flexibility is not only the learning part, but as teachers to work in the context that they're in, instead of the 9 to whatever timeline. It's being able to allow them to teach and learn so it doesn't conflict with their family. Yeah, I guess. Yeah. And that's what I'm going to take away. And that's one of the things I'm going to take away and think about more, and how blended learning can be implemented more effectively after this. So I'll be looking at that a lot more. I've forgotten your other question. What was that?
That's all right. I'll come in now and I'll answer it. And then I'll give you another chance to think about it.
Hey, but if I think about a better idea than you, then I'll hop in.
Okay. So I think you said two things that I'm going to take away from it. The first thing is really sort of an endorsement, really, to always working with great people, like in terms of the staff, the whole lot, and boy, has it, this whole experience has sort of just brought that back to me again in terms of how really special group of people they are, because like I said, for some people and for them it could be quite a daunting task, but to see how they've attacked it, really attacked is what I'm saying. They've really got into it quite seriously in terms of learning new stuff, and so it really raises first two things for me. Is first the aroha and their support and their willingness to help our community and be part of our community. That's always been important. But the second one is that they're great learners themselves. Sometimes they may have forgotten that, because they're teachers and they're sort of teaching, but they have had to become great learners because they've had to take, well, for a lot of them, it's new ideas that they've never done before in terms of implementing. And I know that that's having an impact on them and what they're going to do moving forward in terms of how they're coming out. To me, their classrooms have changed forever.
Yeah.
Okay, their classrooms aren't going to be the same when they go back after the lockdown. And it's
isn't that great?
It's in a way we've been forced to do it, but and they've been forced to do it. It's really changed outlooks and the experiences, and I'm getting some real interesting emails from teachers about this and what we should do and how we need to get more resources in this area, whereas before the thing we've got to guard against is in 4 months or 5 months when this experience is sort of we've moved forward, that we just don't go back to business as usual and get, because that becomes another really interesting experience but then we're just going back and doing things like how we did pre-lockdown. That's
NCEA.
That's what we've got to guard against as leaders, really, is to keep that in forefront into the minds and saying, okay, look, it's that whole idea about, we've always, so learners, what we're saying in our current system, we're saying learners, they've got to be prepared to learn when we're ready to teach. They've got to be if they're not really willing to learn, well, I can't do much about that. Whereas at the moment, and I'm not, I've got this teacher who sends out data about Education Perfect, and he's saying, he's sort of plotting where most people are actually doing the work, and it's still pretty typical. But what we're getting though is we're getting some students who are doing things at wicked hours of the night, but that allows them that flexibility to do that, and that's sort of the whole thing about asynchronous teaching as opposed to synchronous. So for me, I've sort of, I haven't, the only synchronous teaching that I've said that for people to do is, okay, mate, you might want to have a Google Meet, but most of us, it's all asynchronous that we're doing online. That's what we've approached, and synchronous is more the Google Meets that they're having once a week to sort of just to get those relationships going. But like I said, for some kids, I'm going to say some kids are really getting onto this, and even kids sometimes have relationships with nobody.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying, because they can just get out of my way. Here's my learning. I'm going to get on with it. So it's interesting. So it's been an endorsement to me in terms of the special quality of people I've got, but it's also been a learning. So what I'm going to take away from it is that classrooms are never going to look the same, and our teachers, they can learn things and they're good learners, but in a way they've been forced to learn it. So the big thing that we've got to worry about is in 2 or 3 or 4 months that our classrooms aren't looking the same as they looked pre-lockdown. That's the big challenge.
And NCEA changes. Did I say that before? It should change.
Yeah, we're already.
But that's another topic.
I love the way Richard, he followed the rules there, Virginia, 1 and 2, and then my third. Always. Right. Hey, look, guys, that has been fantastic. I think there's so many big gems in there, but I also hope that your teachers in your schools get to watch this, because I think that when you hear the way you speak about your staff and the care that you have for them, I think it's really important that they know that. And this is an opportunity for me to put that out there on your behalf, because I know you both work extremely hard for your communities and for our kids. And I really thank you for taking the time to meet with me today. So, kia ora.
No worries. Kia ora. You take care of yourself, eh? Signing off.
You shut me off yet. I've got to do this first.
Oh, okay. Sorry.